Today the talk that I'm going to present today is exploring the value proposition of GenAI featuring AWS ports. But before I start my technical talk, am I audible at the back?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So I'll be covering 10 things today, and hopefully this would give a brief idea exactly what is value proposition in generative AI. So first of all, I'll be talking about myself. Then I'll be talking about defining value proposition. And in order to define value proposition, we also need to understand what is the current state of generative AI at this stage and age. And then I'll be talking about what is AWS ports, how my company Monster Lab and AWS has partnered together to deliver Monster Hacks and AWS ports to find the value proposition. And then I'll give you some hack studies where we showcase how value proposition can be impacting the society. And then I'll give you some tools how you can identify generative AI moments, as well as how you can have access to value frameworks to understand what kind of value can your application or services can generate. And at the end, I will talk about how we can have a discussion after this technical talk. So, a bit about myself. My name is Sadin Amzad, and I believe I can speak to humans as well as machines. Currently, machines are talking to each other, but I want to be the one who wants to communicate to both machines and humans. I think most of you are also the same. So I have been a principal engineer at Monster Lab for the last 3 years or so, but my journey started in Monster Lab back in 2015. So I have been part of Monster Lab when it was a startup, and recently we have been part of Tokyo IPO. So it is a journey from a startup to enter IPO. So I have seen it all. The challenges that I have faced was across many verticals, and the verticals were particularly on sports, verticals were in FMG, transport and mobility, and whatnot. So I have seen many verticals where they're trying to create value for the people. And I have to tell you something, that most of the verticals, all of the businesses have only one thing to put forward, is to impact people's life in the fastest way possible. And that is what technology is all about, and I am proud to be leading the solution architecture and generative AI stream at Dhaka office. So before I start about the entire technical talk about value proposition, I want to showcase you a small video so that we can all understand what is happening all around us. So I think we can. Sound like it? So let's wait for somebody. সবাই একটু চা খাবো, ভার্চুয়ালি চা খাবো, অসুবিধা নেই। চা কি বানানো হচ্ছে পিছনে? হ্যাঁ, সাউন্ড আছে? Ready?
कौन कहता है कि सोशल नेटवर्किंग के लिए इंटरनेट की जरूरत है? ये देखो, मिसेस मसूरकर ने अपने नए पड़ोसी को फ्रेंड रिक्वेस्ट भेज दी है, और ये लो, उन्होंने झट से एक्सेप्ट भी कर ली है। अब लाइक्स की बात करें तो आपको कितने लाइक्स मिलते हैं? 100, 150। दामोदर जी को रोज 1000-2000 लाइक्स मिल ही जाते हैं। और जब जब बारिश होती है तो अतुल की चाय पूरे हॉस्टल में ट्रेंड करने लगती है।
So I have posted the link. You can watch the entire video, so you can understand that it was particularly a video where they were talking about tea, right? So tea value proposition ki hota pare. What could be the value proposition of tea? So let's listen to the mind behind this ad that we just saw. It was part of Ogilvy. So Ogilvy Pathak gave the value propositions definition, which I feel is very important for our tech industry. We say something like this: the value proposition is a compelling reason why a consumer chooses your product. So there should be a compelling reason why people buy or get services from your product, right? And that value proposition should explain the benefits, should know how to solve a problem, and how it could improve life. But the most important part is that it has to be simple. So for example, tea, right? What is the value proposition of tea? Great taste that brings together people. It could be one value proposition. That means it's tasty. Another value proposition would be hospitality melts hostility. That means if you have issues with someone, bhai chalen cha khiye ashi, right? That means there is a way we can have ice-breaking sessions even with our enemies and whatnot. And the last of all that we saw is basically tea is the original social network. So simple thing, right? Tea. But tea can have different value for different sets of problems. So that is exactly what they're trying to say, that to understand value proposition, you need to understand what is the compelling reason and what is the benefit for that particular product on its people, right? So if we understand what is value proposition, let's move on to the next slide. Have you encountered this magazine recently, back in 2023? So usually Times always cover people, right? They cover like important people like Barack Obama or dictators and whatnot. But in February 2023, Times showcased ChatGPT as the cover photo of Times cover magazine, right? So in the last year, we saw a boom where artificial intelligence became accessible to individuals like without any software degree. Everyone could use AI and can talk to machines, which I already talked about. So not only the programmers, individuals were talking to machines. So even Time magazine could understand that there is a shift, there is a paradigm shift happening in the entire world. So a bit technicalities, what is generative AI, because it's better to know the definition of generative AI before we talk about what is the value proposition of generative AI. So back in the days when we were a computer science student or even schools student, we used to programming, right? What Raisul Bhai said, the traditional way of programming of 7 hours a day, where we have this object, right, where we describe what is a cat, what are the attributes and whatnot. But in 2011, when I was in the universities, suddenly there was a new wave called neural networks, where we basically trained computers that this is a cat, this is not a cat, what is the next image, is this a cat or not, right? So we basically give trained labeled data sets to machines and ask them, if this is cat, if this is not cat, is this a cat or not? And suddenly, fast forward in 2022, 2023, there came these generative language models. So generative language models is something you give a huge pile of books or data sets, not labeled, to a computer and say, hey, just go and read these books. And once it is done, you go and ask, okay, tell me something about the cat. And they will say, a cat is an animal which is loved by all, right? So this is the power of generative AI. So if someone asks you what is a generative AI, always use this example. And this is the example I use not only for our teams, but also for everyone so that they can understand what is generative AI. Generative AI is basically predicting the next word. So if we give a computer a first blank, the computer would think the word "the" is the highest propensity. That means this is the word that can fit there the most, not anything else, right? It couldn't be open, closed, muddy, lonely, unicorn, very. It could be what? The. So imagine the bank was dash. What would be the second word? From all these words, they will be open. So the bank was open. So frustrating, the bank was dash. Now you give it more context, right? So frustrating, the bank was dash. What could be the answer? So frustrating, the bank was closed, right? So we get more information. So the last information I give to the computer is, my shoes are ruined, so frustrating, the bank was, the last answer would have been muddy. So my shoes are ruined, so frustrating, the bank was muddy. That means we're not talking about a financial bank, right? It is a river bank we're talking about. That shows the power of generative AI. If you give it more context, it can predict the next word for you, which adds value to your system as well as your problem that you're trying to solve. So this is a basic technique. Actually, we're not going to talk about much more technicalities, but we'll try to undefine the value proposition. So why it is important today, why we're here today? We have listened to the industry experts, and let us talk about the consulting firms like McKinsey and founders from across the borders, like from India. McKinsey comes up and talks about the 2023, the last year, was the breakout year for generative AI. This year, the year is very important to prove its value. We understand what generative AI can do, we understand who can code, but what's the value of generative AI in my life? That is the thing we need to prove in this year and the year forward, right? And Bhavish, I follow this person a lot. He's the founder of Ola. He's coming up with his own cloud called Kritim Cloud in India. It could also see. So Bhavish talks about this, that this is the once in a lifetime multi-generation opportunity. So I'll explain you with an example. Imagine in 2023 you started learning AI, you started learning generative AI. A person with 20 years of experience will also start learning about generative AI, for example, in 2022, right? That means you are both at the starting line. No one can come up with an experience card. Yes, they can have a degree in data science and machine learning, but guess what? The tools are changing. This is the only time in the history that doesn't come often to the software engineers where something is happening and you can be part of that. So what he mentions is that the entire world software technology is going to be rewritten. Currently we have Copilot, tomorrow it will be Autopilot. Today we have a CRM, tomorrow we'll be speaking with artificial intelligence who will be conversant, like we have seen in OpenAI, right? And the next day, there will be something else. So if you guys can grab this opportunity, as we are grabbing, I think this is the right time to be invested in understanding how we are going to rewrite a software. Ask anyone from the panel or yourself, the software that you're using for the last 5 years can be rewritten better, adding more features, right? So that is the importance of generative AI at this day and age. In Monster Lab Dhaka office, we recently, in 2023, we created this generative AI landscape, and we saw all the models and all the applications that were out there in the market. Most of them were text-based, few of them were audio, few of them are 3D, few of them are video. So this drastically changed in this year as well. So you have to be aware. So you have to be curious. You have to keep your eyes open, ears wide, listening to what is happening around the world, because things are changing fast. And guess what? Law of attraction. Good people attracts good people. Good minds attract good problems, what I say. So please try to be well aware of generative AI. So what is the next step? In 2024, this is like this. So you can see we have to create services so that people are more powerful. So if you look at this, the average performance of a worker without ChatGPT is here. If you give them ChatGPT or any other tools, right, the average performance increases. I'll give a small example. If you look at LinkedIn the last year, the number of status updates is much more, because it helped people to voice out their opinion better, because they think the ChatGPT is a good way to generate good paragraphs based on his opinions, right? That means it democratizes voicing out and opinions. So imagine what it can do to medical industry, finance, right, banking. Today we'll be talking about sports. And the last of all, I think you have to understand this as well. I think what is the end goal of generative AI? According to the DeepMind, it's artificial general intelligence, AGI. So we are currently in emerging level 1. We're somewhat better than an unskilled human, but level 2 হবে যে আমার মতন একজনই 50% capable. That would be an AGI for you. Level 3 would be expert, যে 90% মানুষের মতন কাজ করতে পারে. 4th would be 99%. Level 5 will be superhuman. So DeepMind, open mind, open AI. Everyone is trying to give you the artificial general intelligence. সবাই বলতেছে সবকিছু হবে, right? But guess what? Our brain operates in 20 watts of energy. So little, but so amazing. So এরকম mimic করতে there will be a huge difficult task, but people are still trying to make ourselves superhuman. So given all of this is happening in the state of AI, are we feature ready? So এটা আমি একটু ছোট করে দেখাই।
Looking to upskill for the future?
This new AI can perform all coding jobs in seconds, including blockchain development. While this AI is already outperforming accounting firms. Meanwhile, the new graphic design AI aims to automate graphic design and could minimize the need.
Relax. Because in a future where AI does most of the work, there'll be one thing that humans will finally get to do all day long. Nothing. So it's time to learn the most essential skill of the future. 5-Star presents Nothing University with the first ever diploma program.
So are we the students of Nothing University in the upcoming days? Maybe or maybe not. So after Italy, we will dive deep. We won't be replaced because we are very good. বিশেষ করে বাঙালিরা রিপ্লেস হয় না. We are very close. We know what our value propositions are. Also, the industry thinks we won't be replaced. So there is a Gartner who comes up with predictions, who understands the konta hype na. So in blockchain technology, right? It was a hype back in 3 years or 4 years back. It fizzles out. So according to Gartner predictions, by 2025, you can see the most of the real data would be replaced with synthetic data. And in machine learning, I think we all know garbage in is garbage out. So imagine Facebook algorithm trying to understand the behavior of a community. Most of them are based on synthetic data. So guess what? Your machine learning algorithm won't help because the data is flawed, right? So there are other things as well that in 2030 AI could reduce global warming emissions, but at least it will consume world's electricity even more. Governments, the impact of global jobs will be neutral. There will be no net decrease or not increase. That means people will be adapting more to this technology. So job থাকবেও আবার চলেও যাবে. So not everything is going to be that difficult for human beings. So value proposition নিয়ে আমরা চলে আসি. So this is something that everyone touched in the industry panel. I want you guys to focus on this. Is where is the value located in generative AI services? একদম নিচ থেকে আসি, computer hardware. If you are making chips, then you can create an impact, right? There is a value in generative AI chips, right? But most of the people won't be able to tap into this generative AI value chain. There is cloud platforms. On top of that, you will have foundation models. People will be building models for different specific cases. For example, in India, I recently saw, also in the United States as well, I can see specific LLMs, like that can understand law or legal documents, specific elements that understands hospitals and the medicine industry. So these are the where you can add values. And then you have the model hubs and MLOps. For example, the interface where people can get into those foundation models. And then you have the applications, and then on top of applications there are services. Recently there is this negative connotation that wrapper startups. Have you heard the name wrapper startups? So it's Gemini model wrapped up and said we're a new startup in this society. So আজকাল একটা API দিয়ে বলে আমাদের startup চলে আসছে. But guess what? Wrapper startups would be replaced because by default it would be a part of the OpenAI models in the next release. So যারাই আমরা value chain নিয়ে understand করবো, we won't create something that the OpenAI models would be having a default feature in the next period. For example, video analysis, right? If you're making a startup about video analysis, don't do it. Because you understand that the video analysis would be done by OpenAI in the next iteration, right? So what you can do, you can understand the use cases of video analysis and then try to tackle that problem. So you need to understand where the value is in the value chain. So এখন তাহলে চলে আসি যে AWS এর সাথে Monster Lab, what is the partnership all about? So what is Monster Lab, which I'm part and I normally say I'm born and molded in Monster Lab is it's an office that is distributed all around the world. I'm part of the Dhaka office. I have a few talented colleagues here as well. And our main idea is to create value and accelerate change. If there is any individual, any companies, any organizations and governments wants to do a change, we help them to accelerate and showcase where is the value proposition. And you understand that we need some infrastructure, we need some DevOps, we need to know what are the services available to create these changes faster. And that's why we have partnered with AWS and we have over 30 plus cloud experts, 80 plus projects launched around the globe with 500 plus AWS certifications. If people ask why do you need certification, because at the end of the day when you get into a room, you don't speak because your certification speaks a lot, right? And then you immediately start working. Otherwise you have to defend yourself, what you know, what you don't know. So this certification definitely helps. In Bangladesh, I have two brilliant colleagues, Islam and Tazib Alam, who are AWS solution architects. So why AWS is the option for us when we're trying to create value chain? Because the application level we have Amazon Q, Party Rock, foundation models, all of the services are there and the hardware it provides where we can run our models. Why AWS ports? এখন চলে আসি, right? So AWS ports, কারণ আমরা সবাই জানি AWS দিয়ে আমরা কি করি? Apps বানাই। But sports এর সাথে AWS কিভাবে আসে? Let's visit this. So you can understand that the sports where people are engrossed, what is happening in sports. So there is a fan engagement. We need to know what are the informations available for being a coach so that people can know what is the best athletic decision that a particular athlete can make in the ground real time, right? So AWS created different services across its portfolio so that we can have an impact in sports industry. So these are the sports solution areas AWS already have. One is Fan 360. That means they have services where you can enhance the fans' experience of sporting events, be it NFL or be it World Cup or Olympics and whatnot. It has services where you can create models where you can understand what kind of athletes roadmap should be, what would be the performance athletics. For example, if you have seen Virat Kohli, right, wearing a wristband, which is a fitness app, right? So guess what? All these data sets are helping people to get rid of injuries and whatnot. So there are tools and technologies inside AWS where you can also stream the live videos. For example, an event is happening in San Francisco, but the studio is in somewhere place like Bangalore or Bangladesh, inshallah, in the coming days, where you can do all those editing real time for a game that is happening in San Francisco, right? So this is the next generation media that we have. Smart venues. For example, nowadays you don't need to showcase your ticket as long as it is in the pocket, you can get into the stadium. So these are smart venues that is happening in AWS ecosystem and also IT transformation. So egulo to shop slides galo, right? And I don't want to be more technical, we can reach out after this, but these are the services, individual services. For example, for performance analytics, you have Amazon SageMaker, Amazon S3, Kinesis, Redshift, QuickSight, and they're all having examples how it can relate to performance analytics, and you have other services as well. So why we're talking about AWS Sports? Because Monster Lab and AWS came together and tried to understand, using generative AI, how we can make an impact in the sports industry. And the sports industry is vast. Bangladeshe cricket hoy, Bangladeshe jodi kalke kabadir moddhe improvement korte hoy, right? You won't expect someone from foreign countries helping you, the kabaddi players, right? You have to create your own models. You have to create your own set of services on top of AWS services or other cloud services. So it can be only happening if you think with the right tools at hand. So Monster Lab last month came out with a hackathon, and we had a diversified judges panel and mentors where we'd like to tackle the sports industry with generative AI. This is my colleague Roxana. She basically ensured the problem statement for AWS hackathon, and she gave us 3 areas to talk about, which is Fan 360, Atlas Performance, and Smart Venues. So now that we have a problem and we have tools, and you have teams like all of you, like and me, what we could generate was something that was amazing. The first prize went to this team called Sports Buddy, and someone who was the co-creator for this is sitting right here in the audience, Utpal. If you could stand up and everyone can see you. So you can talk, thank you. You can talk to him, talk to Utpal about his idea. So for example, accessibility. The people who are blind, the people who are deaf, if they want to enjoy the sports, you don't have any tools for them when they're in the stadium, right? So imagine you have features where you receive detailed descriptive commentary or analysis real time in the sport, in the stadium itself, right? For the deaf fans, you can access to sign language, commentary for seamless experience and whatnot. So this entire system built on top of AWS, as well as having generative AI, you can read it in the engineering blog, you can reach out to Utpal. So that was the idea that took the first prize. This was my team. I became second in that, and I am absolutely proud to lose to my junior, because that's what talent is all about. So we became second, and we talked about giving a hyper-driven, personalized roadmap for athletes. So imagine you are a parent, you want to have your child be the next superstar in 20 years of time, and you have no idea how to do it. Which coaches to go to? Who are the trainers, right? So we will give you a matchmaking platform where you can reach out to different coaches, facilities of government and whatnot, and give you personalized, it's like a sports ed tech, right? You will get personalized curriculum for your son to reach from an age of 3 to 5, 5 to 8 and whatnot. So we came up with this idea and we became second. You can read about this in the engineering blog. The third idea was real streamers from Prague. Fishing is an important sport in Europe, but most of the competitive fishing sports doesn't have analytic tools, real-time communication, video conferencing and whatnot. So if you are a fan of chess, you know how computer helped chess game to elevate, right? People use chess machines to understand their game better. So imagine you have AI-driven real-time analytics of the river and the fishing industry, where you can make sure your team wins the most number of fishes when you are competitive, you are having a competition with your colleagues, right? So this was the third prize that went to the hackathon. And the last one, that was the People's Choice, was another team from Dhaka, which was agronauts. Basically, they could run your public feeds of Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot, and understand which, for example, when Argentina won the World Cup, right? They came to know Bangladesh is a huge Argentinian base, and they had Bkas sponsoring them at the end after the World Cup because of the social media. So imagine that power. You have no idea who is following where, but based on your internet activities, now corporations can reach out that, hey, there is a huge amount of fans that we can cater to. We can launch our initiatives based on the real-time data of social networking sites, public websites, and whatnot. Read more of this in the engineering blog, you will love it for sure. So why I'm showcasing all of this? We don't need to make every app an AI app. We need to understand which particular feature needs an AI moment. For example, you are going to give electricity bill to the bank. You don't need an AI. Do you need an AI? You do not need an AI. But imagine your AI keeps on turning off the fan and the AC and the lights automatically to reduce your electricity consumption in the next upcoming 1 month or so, right? You can see a smart prediction model where you exactly know how much electricity would be consumed and the bill would be in the next coming days, so that you can understand. So imagine for this auditorium, we have also worked with smart places. So imagine this auditorium and the electricity consumption. Someone needs to be actively involved. Give it to generative AI, give it to an AI model. It can ensure that the lights are turned off when everyone leaves the room. AC is turned up and down. So you don't need AI for sure for electricity bill, but there are other problems that you can identify, which we call AI moments, and you can invest in them. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. So my app that I talked about, Athlete Pro, if you can read the slides later on. So how did you create the value proposition for us? We had all of these user stories. After taking interviews of different people, we created this persona, and we identify what are the bottlenecks, from awareness of availability of sports, to planning and validating getting a sports roadmap, from training and then to retirement. So a 360 view of an athlete's journey. What are the issues? So we identified all of the issues, and eventually we figured there are few things that can have AI, because AI is costly. Running AI models is costly. So you need to be very specific what your AI machine is doing. You also need to be ethically responsible. Which data are you catering to, right? Because guess what? Your CTO comes up and gives you a data set and asks you to build an AI software, maybe with lesser money. But after 2 years, they get a huge lawsuit from a European firm or Bangladeshi government because of the lack of privacy and whatnot, right? So the cost is huge. So you need to identify AI moments to exactly understand where is the value that is available for your consumers and the developers. And that is exactly what Monster Lab does, and exactly the frameworks available outside that you can read about. So you need to understand where is your value. For example, it is the intersection between what user wants, what the business wants, and what is feasible. And that is the sweet spot that you have to aim for. That is the strategy and the value proposition you have to aim for. So even before creating an AI model, even before coding your best AI app, you need to first understand the problem. Bhaiya bollo na coding na, it's all about being curious. You have to forget about coding. You have to identify the problem, come up with a solution, and it must be simple. If you cannot say your solution in a simplest word, guess what? Machines won't also be creating a simple solution for you. So there are tools out there which is called value proposition canvas. You can have any set of problems in this particular, which was very done by a third-party company, where you understand what are the gains and pains of customers, what are the customers doing, what are your product and services, how it can give gain creators for your customers, and what are the pain variables. So if you map them, So this is one of the ways you can create value propositions. Also, you can ask certain questions, and this is coming from MIT Sloan, where you can ask, is it accurate? Is it explainable? Is it repeatable? Is it confidentiality? So I'll be very short and say you one example. Hallucination is a problem, right? Hallucination, that means inaccurate responses from generative AI is problematic. Guess what? No. For some cases, hallucination is a blessing. For some cases, it is a problem. For example, when it comes to a radiologist who is trying to understand where is a cancer-prone area, you need your data sets to be accurate, right? So you need to understand the accuracy for that model. But if you're running, for example, what Bhaiya said about from Bongo, if you're running a creative agency where you want to come up with an marketing campaign for your next release of the movie, let it hallucinate. Let us come up with an imaginative idea, right? So hallucination is a feature for content developers, but hallucination is not a feature for some. So you need to understand accuracy is something applicable to which model. So you have to always ask yourself these questions, right? So something is a bug, and which আমরা বলি না, এটা আপনার জন্য bug হতে পারে, আমার জন্য feature, right? So you have to be very critical about this. There are other frameworks as well which give, આજকাল if you Google, you can see generative AI calculators, which can give you the cost over a period of time. You have heard to Brain Station's head of fintech, where he talked about that they ran an estimation for 5 years, right? So these are also available online. You can measure the implementation and the operational cost. You can create an estimation, and you can also understand the return of investment in the long term and short term. So there are other ways. I'll give you the link. Basically, you can read through them, and you can understand that if you ask certain questions, you can understand what is your efficiency gain, what would be your increased quality, where would be skill enhancement, value creation, and operation capacity. So everything is there. People are working on these canvases. You can also get into this. Lastly, Monster Lab, what we do, we have created this framework called the Dojo. So you can see most of the people from different sectors, AI ethics experts, designers, developers, clients, stakeholders come together, and what we do is basically this. We sit together and gather ideas, and we try to generate outcomes, and finally we iterate it and create MVPs so that we can grow that solution. So it's a model that we talk about called Dojo. And guess what? Today's entire technical talk was only based on this. That if you are a company or an individual or a student out there and you want to understand the value proposition of generative AI, the first tool that you have is hackathons. Because hackathons would allow you to use certain tools for a specific set of problems and go crazy about it. And then you iterate and iterate and iterate. So if you understand value proposition of generative AI, my suggestion would be you can ask me about how to organize hackathons, commit yourselves to hackathons, make a culture of innovation within your organization so that you can generate value from, because we believe everyone has the, সবাই আমরা entrepreneur, just we don't get a chance, right? So it's better if we have an hackathon mindset going forward. Thank you for listening. My name is Sabin Amzad. Hopefully we'll be connected after this meeting. Thank you so much.